This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, John? John?
Here we go. Am I unmuted finally?
Yes.
Good.
Okay, we are streaming and we have a quorum.
Good.
So anytime you'd like to start, you can do a roll call attendance.
Okay. Let me note the ones that I see evidence of being here. I, John Fricker, am on as one of the participants. I see Sally and
Yes.
Jeremy, and then Jeremy Grenard. And then I see Travis Cole, a name from out of the past, serving as proxy for Bill Smith. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Good. Stuart Klein. He was hiding behind his mask before, but I recognized him. Okay. Mitch Langford. And I don't see, Mitch, you want to respond? I see you listed here. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm here.
Good. What I don't see is a representative from City Bus.
We had a no on all accounts so far from City Bus.
Okay. And
But
I
we
do
should have Adam Keister also from Purdue Airport.
Okay, let me look for that one on my list.
Yeah, I'm here.
Good, got you down. Jason Fillauer for West Lafayette Police.
I am here.
Good. Now, among the other voting members, let's see. Lafayette Police, William Carpenter. Not yet, okay. Tippecanoe County Sheriffs. Either Woody Ricks usually shows up or Rob Hangy. Okay, so I have, Sally, does that constitute a roster call?
It works, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So.
Oh, and Woody Ricks has just arrived.
Yay. Okay, good. So then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 voting members present. And GLPTC not yet represented, and Lafayette Police not yet represented.
Correct.
Okay, so we can move on to the agenda then. And that would be a review of the minutes from the December 16th meeting. And a motion to approve would be in order, and we can see if there's any need to adjust anything.
Stu Klein, I'll move it.
All right, who was that?
Stu.
Okay, thank you, Stu. A second, please.
Jeremy, I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Anything that needs to be adjusted in the minutes that were distributed? If not, Sally, do we go through the roll call then? The 9 people
Yes,
present?
please.
Oh, okay. So say yes if you approve the minutes, say no if you do not. So I will start it off by voting yes. And Sally,
Yes,
Jeremy,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Stuart,
Yes.
Mitch,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Woody,
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? All right, nobody's speaking up. So it looks like it was 9 yeses and no negatives. So the minutes from the previous meeting are approved. Item number 2 are access permits. Are there any? And usually this comes from INDOT.
We do not have any new commercial drive applications at this time. I understand that there are 2 existing. However, we have no new information on those items.
Okay. So we can go on to the 3rd item then, and this is to amend the fiscal year 2020
John? Everything seems frozen. Is it for you?
kind of network connection
Okay,
error message
John,
here.
I have a
Yeah.
quick comment to make on access permits, if I could.
Okay,
Especially for INDOT's information, we have received a filing for a planned development on State Road 25, west of US 231 and immediately west of the KB&S Railroad. They will be seeking an access permit. Our staff is going to send to you all in Crawfordsville, the site plan that they have submitted. And as soon as you are willing to provide us with any kind of input about that entrance location, that would be extremely helpful. You will, of course, be invited to the sketch plan meeting, which will be virtual, but I wanted to let you know that we would be sending that and hope that you'll have a chance to give us a little feedback at the very start of the negotiation process.
Sally,
Yes,
give me that location one more time. 25 where?
26,
Oh, 26. Okay.
just
Yes.
west of 231 and immediately west of the KB&S Railroad crossing.
I was on
And
State
it's
Road
on-
25 and not following where you were at all. Okay.
Okay, and it's
Thank
on
you.
the north side of State Road 26.
Okay. Thank you.
We at INDOT appreciate being advised and we'll look forward to the information and plan to respond promptly.
Good, thank you, Travis.
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Are we ready to move on to item 3? And is it Doug who will be giving us information about amending the tip?
Yes, it'd be my pleasure to present this. We have
Okay.
another request from the Crawfordsville District Office, and there are 8 projects involved, and all are related to the widening of I-65 north of the bridges over the Wabash River, the current project that's being done right now. The first project is the actual main project, and this is increasing the cost, the federal and state share, from $47.4 million to $66 million. The reason why is that initially the project termini was just past County Road 725 North, and it was determined that there would not be enough funds to actually do that. But it appears there was a significant internal discussion and a decision was made to go back to the original termini. So again, we're going to be changing the amounts, increasing them the total cost would be $66 million. The additional projects follow suit. 4 of them are only changing the construction year, which is, by the way, fiscal year 2022. The projects that are involved in that are the I-65 north and southbound bridges over State Road 43, the County Road 725 North Bridge over the interstate, and then the southbound bridge over CSX Railroad, in North 9th and Burnett's Creek. The remaining 3 projects, we are also changing the date, but we are also increasing the project costs. The date again is changing to fiscal year 2022. The 3 projects, 2 of them are the bridges over State Road 43. The northbound project is increasing by $600,000. Southbound project increasing by $350,000. And then the northbound bridge over the CSX Railroad, North 9th Street and Burnett's Creek is increasing by $150,000. The specific project details are in the staff report, and we are recommending approval of this amendment to the policy board. Are there any questions?
So as Doug said, we should consider this, discuss it as appropriate, and then to vote on whether to recommend approval by the policy board.
Correct.
Any comments? Are we supposed to wait a little bit longer than usual, Sally, for any outside input? Or
Yes, we'll need to wait for 1 minute for comment, and then we'll check.
okay. So my understanding was the original project, as originally described, was shortened because of this lack of funds, and then it was restored. Its termini were restored, and that came with it a rise in the price tag.
Correct.
Okay. So let me start the vote, and we always have people coming in from the outside, and I'm glad to.
John, Aria is monitoring the input, so we'll ask her if anything came in.
Okay. Can we start our vote and then check with Aria?
Well, we should check first for comment.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, so I don't currently see any public comments on Facebook or YouTube.
Okay, we are ready for a vote now.
Okay. So I will vote yes. Sally,
Yes?
Jeremy,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Stu,
Yes.
anybody from Lafayette Police? Okay, Mitch,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
anybody from City Bus? Woody,
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
So I have it as a 9-0 vote in favor to send that to the policy committee with our recommendation.
Great, thank you.
So next, item 4 on our agenda is administrative modifications to the fiscal year 2020 to 2024 tip. And that's usually something Sally tells us about.
Yes. This was the last piece in the financial puzzle to try to get the county safety project at North River Road and County Road 500 North anywhere close to a sufficient amount of federal funds. As a safety project, it could have been funded 90% with federal funds. With this final swap with NERC, the Northwestern Indiana MPO, of $1.45436 million. I think it actually came in when it bid on the 12th at 83% federal, or pretty close to that. So not as much as it could have been funded, but better than it was before NERC agreed to this swap. So the administrative modification was to add this amount of money to the tip, and for everybody's information, we will pay half of it back next fiscal year and the other half back in fiscal year 2024, only using HSIP funds.
Does this require a vote on our part?
It does not. It's for your
Okay.
information.
Okay. Any questions on that one? Okay, at least not from us. Ari, I can field any questions that come in and we can catch up to those questions.
Thank you, Sally.
You're welcome.
You're appreciated. Well, that was item number 4. Number 5 on the agenda is the APC progress report with several sub-items. First being the MPO update, complete streets compliance determination.
Doug will take care of this section.
Yeah, this one and then the second one are all related, or both related to the new TIP. The first one is, of course, our complete street compliance determination. Back in June of 2012, the 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan was adopted. And with that adoption, 2 new policies were put in place. One is this complete street policy, so that any projects, whether they be new construction, reconstruction, widening, or changing from a rural to urban conversion and using federal funds, must be determined to be complete street compliant. And then the other policy is, or relates to, our Stbg funds, in that 10% will be set aside for non-motorized projects. So again, this is addressing or going to the first policy, in that the Technical Transportation Committee reviews the project descriptions and then makes recommendation to the policy committee whether it's compliant with the policy, or whether the project is compliant with the policy, or whether it is exempt. Now, when I put the list together in early December, we had 2 new projects that were requesting federal funds. One was from West Lafayette, is the Cherry Lane Extension Project, Phase 2. And this begins at the end of Phase 1 and goes all the way to Northwestern Avenue. Project scope in the staff report: pavement reconstruction, widening, new curb and gutter, and intersection improvements at McCormick Road. Non-motorized amenities include new sidewalk and multi-use trail. In looking at this project description and the amenities, staff has reviewed this against the complete street policy, and we have determined that it does comply with it. The second project is from Tippecanoe County, and it is the North 9th Street Urban Trail Extension. And this begins at the end of where the trail is at basically Sagamore Parkway in Lafayette, and extends the trail to the Community Corrections Facility. Of course, this is a new trail, and it does comply with the complete street policy. Should say this is, as a side note, this is part of a larger project in improving North 9th Street from Sagamore Parkway all the way to north of Burnett's Road. It includes improving the road, redecking the bridge over the Wabash River and this new trail, and then adding a new sidewalk from basically Davis Ferry Park up over the bridge and then back to the Wabash Heritage Trail. All the other projects, as noted in the staff report, have been found complete street compliant earlier, so we're just looking at these 2 projects. And we are asking the Technical Transportation Committee to make a recommendation that, or make a determination that they are compliant with the complete street policy. Any questions?
Well, I have one, and that is, do you consider this a cumbersome or complicated process?
In terms of reviewing these projects,
Yes,
or with,
and making a recommendation to us.
well, we thought it would be just another layer of being open to the general republic, or not general, to the public, so that when we do review these projects, that we are serious about including these non-motorized infrastructure improvements such as sidewalks, trails, bike lanes. And when we put this together, we thought it would be very important to add this additional review and determination so that we are actually doing it.
I asked because I've been asked to review a paper submitted to a journal that indicates that there's a lot of uncertainty among MPOs on how to determine compliance with complete streets policies. And they went ahead and put together 7 matrices that I couldn't follow. So I thought that this better be worth it if you're going to go through all these extra hoops. And yet you have laid out very nicely in one page, I think, whether or not a given project complies with complete streets. So I'll keep that in mind when I review that manuscript later this week. But this seems perfectly effective and not too complicated.
John, I would agree. I don't see why anybody would have to have a decision-making matrix to see, are there sidewalks, are there trails, are there curb and gutter, and are there transit facilities?
Well, good. That's gives me some guidance there. That rather selfishly wanted to get that answered. Any other comments about what Doug has just told us? Now, do we need to accept this by vote?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we'll go through the roll call again. And
we just need a motion that that these 2 new projects for the TIP are in compliance with the complete streets policy.
Okay, so we need a motion and a second.
John, I move that these 2 projects are compliant with the policy as recommended.
Let me make sure. Was that Jeremy or Travis?
Sorry, Travis Cole.
Travis, okay. Thank you.
And I'll second that as Adam Feaster.
Okay, Adam, thank you.
And there are no public comments at this point.
Good. So we'll go through roll call vote unless there's another comment or question. Okay. Voting to accept that declaration that these projects do meet the complete streets and should be, do we forward this to the policy committee too?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
That'll be made part of their adoption of the TIP.
Okay, thank you. So voting to accept that these projects meet complete streets policy, I vote yes. Sally?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Stu?
Yes.
Anybody from Lafayette Police? Mitch?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Anybody from City Bus? Woody?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Again, 9 yeses, 0 nos.
Hey, thank you.
Next on the agenda would be a report about fiscal year 2020 to 2026 TIP project financial constraint and prioritization.
Well, as you've seen in the packet, this is a fairly lengthy staff report. This is where we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and allocate all of our federal funds for the next 5 fiscal years. We have a lot of parts to this, and I'll try to go over them. So when we get to that point where we discuss the projects, we'll have a better understanding. Again, this is a fairly long one, so I'll try to touch on it as most I can, but briefly. The process in terms of doing this, in terms of one, we're going to allocate our Stbg and TA funds, and then we are going to allocate our HSIP funds. And then the third task is recommending INDOT projects which are priority to this community. For this first task and the second task as well, we usually try to use different performance measures to make a decision as to how to allocate these funds. One of these performance measures, at least on the federal level, is looking at safety. Specifically, we just recently approved safety performance measure, looking at the number and rate of fatalities, the number of serious injuries, the rate of serious injuries per 100 million miles traveled, and the number of non-motorist fatalities and serious injuries. In addition to that, when we look at these projects, we need to keep in mind 8 performance measures we have here locally. One is the project in the 2045 MTP, is the project in the 2045 MTP financially constrained list. Was the project previously programmed, and is it advancing? How far has this project advanced? Does the project include sidewalks, bike lanes, or trails? Is the project complete street compliant? Will the project be designed to meet ADA standards? And the need for access management. In addition to that, we have another level of information that we need to keep in mind too, and that are red flag analysis, which we have the information in the staff report by project. And this basically is a first cut environmental look at each project. Now, when we do this, there are a couple rules that we do need to follow. One is that, as in previous tips, we must be financially constrained. And for NDOT, that means that we cannot over-program our fiscal years. We, again, cannot carry over any federal balances to the next fiscal year, but we can split the preliminary engineering and right-of-way phases between years. We can over-program or under-program, but we must trade federal funds with another MPO, such as what we discussed earlier that we did with NERC. On page 2, we talk about first the Stbg federal funds. Each year we have an estimated 4,021,659 funds that we can allocate. And then we do have additional funds for federal fiscal year 2025. And this was with a trade with the Evansville MPO that we did in 2019. And that amount is $616,477. The table below that shows the requests by project, by fiscal year, by phase, and by the amount requested. As you can see, looking on the list, we have a large number of projects requesting federal funds for construction. And below that, we have a summary of the amount requested by jurisdiction. And if you see, that total was $23.86 million. Now, our 5-year allocation, including the Evansville MPO trade, is $20.72 million. So we're only short $3 million. So this is pretty good in that previous years, or previous times when we actually did this allocation, the amounts were significantly different. So that's good news in that we only requested a pinch more than what we have. Page 3 shows the performance measures by project, such as in the MTP plan, bike ped infrastructure, complete street, ADA standards. And then right below that, we have the projects, and then we have the number of issues possibly could be encountered and which ones. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, the Stbg 10% set aside. We do have one project that is specifically dedicated to non-motorized infrastructure, and that is the Sagamore Parkway Trail. the request is a little over $3 million, so that does exceed our 10% target, so that's good news. Looking at transportation alternative funds, we have $214,328 that we can allocate every year. And as I mentioned earlier, we can move that around, or at least half of it, to other different funding types. So the first part is to look at how we are going to allocate the Stbg and TA funds. Now, in the past, what we did was we had the list by funding and by year and the amount, and we just started filling in the numbers. But the last 2 times when we developed tips, we came up with a first cut scenario and then had our discussion after that. And that's what we again did this year in trying to look at how we can fund all of the requests. And again, this is just a first cut. So for fiscal year 2022, as you can see, we have basically option A, and then we do have also an option B. We do have all 4 projects listed. Unfortunately, we don't have enough funds to fully fund the Yeager Road project, but we can fully fund the Sagamore Parkway Trail and then fully fund either the Morehouse Road right-of-way phase or the Soldiers Home Road phase 1. And then we do have enough leftover federal funds to fund the portion of the corresponding, whether it be Morehouse Road or Soldiers Home Road. So I know we'd like to do both of them, but we simply just don't have enough money. As you can see there in column E, we do have the transportation alternative funds. And whether going with option A or option B, we have a balance of 0, so meaning it's financially constrained. The Yeager Road project, even though we show it not being funded here, we are moving it to the next fiscal year, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So these are the 2 options we developed and we came up with. It doesn't mean that we can choose either one of those. We can start working on a separate one, an option C, or if the committee would like to choose either option A or B, it's up to you. So any discussion?
Doug, I
Yes.
would like to know what you meant about we can't fund Yeager Road until 23.
Well, we only have the $4 million to allocate. The Yeager Road request was for $4.95 million. So even if we just allocated funding to that project, we would still not have enough funding to do the full 80%. So then that means we would have to move all of the other projects to 2023 and then still come up with additional funds for Yeager Road.
Well, what would we do in 2022 with the balance of our money?
I'm sorry, I'm not following you with a balance.
Well, are you saying that the Sagamore Parkway Trail, Morehouse, and Soldiers Home, if they're the only things on the list, that will use all our money?
Yes, in either option A or option B, we can fully fund the Sagamore Parkway Trail. We can fully fund either the Morehouse Road, the right-of-way phase, or the Soldiers Home PE phase, and then partially fund the corresponding Morehouse or Soldiers Home, depending on which secondary project we want to fully fund, whether it be Morehouse or Soldiers Home Road.
So in actuality, in option A and option B, Yeager Road isn't even in play.
Correct.
Okay, that's what made this confusing. It looks like it's in play.
It's not in play for 2022,
Right,
but it's back in
but it's
play,
in the list for 2022.
right? Because that's where we were started. So
Yeah.
then we're delayed back to 23, if I'm reading this right.
Correct.
Okay, so the only question is, do we fully fund Morehouse right away, or do we fully fund Soldiers Home Phase 1 PE? Is that right?
Correct.
Well, I'd like to hear what Mitch has to say.
You know, I think we'd be okay being, and I don't know where the Morehouse Road project sits. It might fall into a higher priority based on where it's at in its design, but we could potentially be okay with the partially funded option for Soldiers Home Road based on where we are with that project.
And Mitch, you think you'll be able to do your RFP and have a firm on hand in fiscal year 2022?
Yeah, we've prepared for that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Stu, what are your thoughts about Morehouse, and will that be a full right-of-way purchase, or will that be a phased right-of-way purchase?
We'd always planned to do the right-of-way purchase in full and not have to split until we hit construction.
Okay, okay.
And that's that $1 million is to buy your house.
I hope you're only going to take my flowering shrubs.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the track, and then the big decision was, you know, could we fund the construction of the whole project or not, or do we have to split phase? And I've been pushing the designer off because the environmental's about to clear and starting the right away, and we're getting to that point where you start making some decisions. Where do we cut a line?
Well, if Mitch is sort of okay with the partial funding, then I'd be okay with option A. And what I would say is that if there is money from favorable lettings on either Sagamore Parkway Trail or Yeager Road, that money go to
PE.
more fully fund the Soldiers Home Road Phase 1 PE.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So
okay,
you'd be basically splitting your PE between 22 and 23 on Soldiers Home Road. Is that what I'm understanding, Mitch?
Yeah, that's correct. That's
okay. And this is also one that we need to get an MOU together, right?
Yes, it is. We're going to have to collaborate close to 50-50 on this one.
Okay. That's what I thought by the time it's all said and done. Halfway. Okay. That sounds, now what does that do? I'm looking down.
Okay, so if we go down then to fiscal year 2023, so basically we choosing option A for 2022 will put us to option A under 2023. First of all, we will use a small part to fund the McCutcheon Ped Safety Project. What you don't see in this list is that the majority of funding is coming from HSIP funds, which we're fairly locked in right now. because our 2022 and 2024 funds are going to the North River Road and 500 North project. Jeremy requested funds for the South 9th Street project for right-of-way, $280,000. And then you can see here we have Yeager Road moved to 2023 and Soldiers Home Road, the remaining balance of PE. So in order to fund Yeager Road, you can see here the total between those three projects. If we moved South 9th Street right-of-way to a future year, 2024, we would need $5.56 million. So that means we're going to have to borrow $1.548 million from fiscal year 2024. But that will fully fund Yeager Road. Does that seem to be reasonable, or questions?
How do we borrow that money from another year?
Well, it would be simply like a swap that we did with NERPC and with Evansville that
Okay, so it's a swap, not a borrow.
Correct.
Okay. So to make that work, we're going to have to find somebody who's willing to make that trade.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Is there any other way we can fund that project?
Given that, again, we only have the $4 million and we only have $214,000 in TA funds, since it needs almost $5 million in federal funds, it would be not at an 80-20, it would be at a smaller amount of federal funds if we just did all of that in 1 year for Yeager Road. But then again, we're locked in with the McCutcheon project. If we did put all the federal funds, STBG and TA federal funds, that would shortchange the McCutcheon PED safety project. And then we already moved off the PE, the remaining balance from 2022. So this would fully fund the engineering if we allocated the funds to this.
Stu, what time of year do you expect, or which, I know in the fiscal year, but is it in 2022 or 2023 calendar years that you expect Yeager to go to letting?
My hope would be in November to get the full season in.
Okay.
So then start, Yeager does have some clearing that we'd probably do ahead so that we could get that full season to build Yeager. I think it'll go quickly. Most of it's wide open. And we can get it in that year. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Goes right. Yeah.
It'll be a little harder for other MPOs to know whether they can spend or not spend their money in November, since the fiscal year goes, well, they could let contracts basically until April. But
we could,
if it had to be delayed because we couldn't find somebody to swap with, you know, if it could be delayed a few months, is that a possibility?
Yeah, push it back like we just did Lindbergh to a January letting you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Because right away we clear, we can still do pre-clearing and utility work up in front. But yeah, that's doable.
Yeah, I think it'll take a little longer probably than July to November for other MPOs to know whether they can spend their money or not.
Okay. Yeah, that'll work. I'll make a note. So,
because, you know, we were going up to the wire even in December for your January letting on this other swap.
right. So we'd move Jaeger to a January 23 letting. Okay.
I think it would be a little easier to hopefully ensure success in finding somebody to swap with if we did that.
Okay. I'm nothing if not agreeable.
So then we good with going with option A with this?
Well, I'd like to hear from Jeremy.
Okay.
Yeah, right now on our quarterly report, we're showing right away clear in August of 2024. So by pushing that to 2024, I think we're okay still.
Okay.
And the one last thing with 2023 here, I have a proposed priority with, it could be McCutcheon #1, Jaeger Road #1, but I had them McCutcheon #1, Jaeger #2, and Soldiers Home Road #3. So I can change, we can change those around, or is this okay?
I don't know that it much matters.
It really doesn't. It's just one of those federal requirements that we have a priority list, a priority assigned.
Right.
Well, just a quick comment here. I do like the idea of prioritizing the construction first, which I see is what Doug has done. So I think that's a good strategy because that's a little bit harder to fiddle around with in the PE. So I think that kind of by default pushes Soldiers Home to #3 priority.
I think that makes sense too.
Okay, any other questions with 2023? And I guess go on to the next year, 2024. And this is where we'll move South 9th Street, the right-of-way phase. Okay, this is an interesting year. Of course, we moved South 9th Street, the right-of-way phase, to this year. But the two big requests we have are South 9th Street construction at $4.24 million, and then Morehouse Road at $6.67 million. So as you can see, significant request. And again, since we have swapped funds for the previous year, we pull those funds out. We only have a balance of $2.47 million to allocate. I looked at this and looked at this and looked at this, and how could we afford or fund both construction projects and fully fund them the 80%? And there was the only way that I could see doing this is what I came up with here. So if anybody has another idea, that would be great. But for this fiscal year, we would allocate the $280,000 to the South 9th Street for right-of-way, but then the balance, the $2.19 million, would then be swapped or traded for 2025 funds. And then Morehouse Road would be bumped to 2025. And then South 9th Street would be bumped to 2026. I know it's a big stretch. Trying to figure out how we could allocate enough federal funds to do both projects. This is method or a way to do that. So if there's any other thoughts or comments, please let us know.
Well, my thought is that funding our TIP pretty much every year by having to do a swap is not a good policy. I just think that if we're going to have to rely on swapping money every year, it's going to be, I think we're going to get ourselves into a bind that's going to be hard to get out of. I mean, that's just my thought. Quite frankly, it takes a lot of work to get through a swap. It's not the paperwork at the end, and INDOT is really Johnny on the spot with the finance department, but in trying to negotiate and get answers and, you know, prodding people again to get you an answer, takes a lot of time. So if there's a way we can do this without having to swap all the time, that would be a big benefit to the MPO director. There's a lot of dead silence out there.
Well, I guess the only option here is that one project would definitely have to move to a future year, and then the other project would then have to be split into phases, receiving the remaining balance this fiscal year, and then the remaining balance in 2025, and then so pretty much.
I guess my question for Stu is that amount for Morehouse, is that one phase or is that the whole construction?
That's the whole construction.
Okay.
And
you have been considering you would have to do it in phases, right?
Right. Yeah, that wouldn't be a big surprise to us to have to split that. We've played around with doing the roundabout and to the end is how we do it. The only thing that happens is when we phase it, it's obviously going to traffic maintenance issues. You know, we'll have to hit everybody twice.
Right.
But that's life. I mean, it's a big project. It's a big project.
Do you have any estimations yet on what each phase might cost?
No, that's what I was supposed to get back with the engineer once we knew whether we were going to have to split it or not and figure out how. We could work this backwards. You know, what can I get? What could we? And then that'll determine the split point.
Okay.
You know, could we do 4 and 2.5, or can we do, what could we get like in 24 and balance? Again, that's the start point. I'm a little lost here in the math. To make 24 balance, what could we have?
Well, it would be the $2,193,590.
Okay. That might make.
That's all we have to put toward phase 1 Morehouse or phase 1 South 9th. Is that right, Doug?
Correct. That's the balance we have for that fiscal year 2024.
Because we're paying back the swap from the year before. That's what worries me about these swaps is it's like we get deeper and deeper in the weeds and less money.
Mm.
Does Mitch have to split his project too then, or no?
No, I don't think Mitch should be splitting his. So I'm lost in the math here. I'm sorry. If Morehouse went $2.5 million in 24 and the remainder in 25 in the 2 phases, does that or does that not clear? Does that allow South 9th and Soldiers Home to move forward.
Well, Tim, we can actually do this. If you could put on Morehouse Road where the 0 is under that column and put the 2193590. And then for 2025, if you go down there, if you put, let me see, we'll need to calculate, or we'll need to, for that number that's showing, we'll need to remove the 2.19.
So the balance is 6677 minus 2,193,590, right?
Yes, and then I also allocated the transportation alternative funds for Morehouse, so that reduces it slightly. So according to the numbers here, it looks like for the second part of it, it would be the 4.26 million needed.
And what does that do to 25?
And then we'll have to remove on the green area, the trade, the 2.193 from the trade, that one. So if you just, and then that would then, if you allocated the balance of Morehouse Road, it looks like, and then the 600,000 for right of way for Soldiers Home, that would balance it out. And this is also assuming, if you see in the green shaded area, that we are flexing $231,042 from HSIP funds. We can do that.
All right.
So this would then, by doing this, we would have to split the Morehouse Road project, but we would not have to do any trading.
Yeah.
Now, for future reference, since we're talking about these big projects that we can't necessarily fund with the allocation we get, I'm thinking about Soldiers Home Road Phase 1 here for us. I mean, we're looking at a $8 to $9 million project there. That's going to be hard to fund, similar to what Morehouse Road is now. Would it help us now if we pared that project back a little bit and phase it out a little bit differently to drive down that construction cost on the front end, so we don't have this problem in 6 years, 5 years, whenever it's ready for construction?
That's one possibility. Another possibility would be like we did with Morehouse Road and split it up, or split the construction phase into 2 parts.
Right. I was thinking about, since we haven't started design right away, obviously, on this, could be a possibility to find a few $100,000 here and there in the PE and right-of-way portion. Not necessarily desirable, but you know, if push comes to shove, we could talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's
So
also
what was the first, I'm sorry, but what was the first out of the 24 money available then for Morehouse was the 2 point what?
The $2,193,590.
24, and then the 25 was the 4 million.
Was $4,269,178 in STBG funds, and then our full allocation of TA funds, the $214,328.
And so what, the 214 in TA, the 4.269 million, and the 2.193 whatever from the year before, what do those three numbers add up to be?
They should sum to the $6.677 million, the full request.
That's what I want to make sure, that those three numbers in fact do add up to that.
Okay. And that keeps our right of way. Yeah, that works. Can I ask you to back up to your McCutcheon safety? What was our year on that?
2023.
2023. Okay. And so my bridge 56 is 2024, actually. Okay. I don't want to be closing both ends of old 231 at the same time. It's bad. Okay. All right.
Oh, we need 526.
Yeah.
Yeah.
26 or 527?
5.
Tim, could you scroll down to 2025 real quick?
527. Sure. My notes is 527.
527. Yeah.
Okay. We're good. But in 2 different years, so we're good.
Okay, so then in 26, now we can fully fund South 9th, right, in 1 year?
Yes, we can fully fund that. We would have to bring over or flex a little over $4,000 from HSIP, but that would fully fund the South 9th Street construction phase.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we don't have enough money for the North 9th Street Trail or Cherry Lane Extension Phase 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So does the 5 years, the way we just allocated the funds, the discussion, does that seem to be okay, agreeable?
Yeah, all comments welcome.
Now, since I'm the new guy, I'll ask, with the splitting up of the PE funds for Soldiers Home Road 22 and 23, how's that going to work with our contract, I guess?
I think it is.
It'd be one consultant, right? You would just have to perform the work where you're splitting it out based on how much money you have available.
Right, Mitch, you'll work with Susie and she'll authorize or help you to authorize multiple purchase orders against the one contract. So it's just simply cash flowing over the 2 fiscal years, or really as many as you need. I'm not saying you should change the plan anymore, but as many as you need, and Susie or someone from the office will help authorize as many purchase orders then that are required so that you can maintain continuity of payment.
Perfect, thank you.
And if you get phased off, that's reimbursement money, right? So you can, once you have the contract, if he's moving ahead and you want to go, you can prepay and get reimbursed right at the turn of the fiscal year. It's just when you turn your claims in that FEMA's has to be there, right?
Okay,
that's right.
So
as long as the process and the contract are already approved, and we allocate a small purchase order that even if it's $1, I'm not saying we should do $1, but as long as we have one purchase order process and the FEMA's authorized, then those funds are authorized for forever after, and you can go back to seek reimbursement as purchase orders then can be authorized. So it may be that you rely on cash cost favorability in some of these years to make contractual obligations whole for reimbursement, although that leaves you locals, you know, sitting exposed for a little longer.
It's if you
And
have,
I'll
I guess that's
reserve
the
that
way
maybe
to,
sometimes you guys are a little longer than desirable anyway.
yeah, it happens. I mean, you need to have the cash on all these reimbursables. You need to have the cash on hand to make the full payment before you get reimbursed anyway. So if you have to carry from one fiscal to another, I mean, you just work with the consultant and try to phase the work so that you're not too exposed.
right. Okay, that makes sense.
What we're doing with
That's kind of what I was wondering.
We've got split right away right now, 2 fiscal years, and you just cover until you can claim it.
Right away is an
Mitch, it sounds
excellent
like
example of
between,
where cash flow. I'm sorry, Sally.
no, go ahead.
Right away is an excellent example of where you can cash flow, and usually the need for funding obligations comes far before any actual payments are authorized. You could go many months, and that could gap a fiscal year, depending upon the timing, where as long as you can afford to get started and we can arrange the paperwork to begin, then that money can then come much later. It requires a great deal of schedule management, and any help we can provide, we will be happy to try to do so.
Right away, it works really well because, or it tends to work well because you've got services in one year and usually lit in the next. So it's the fact that it's split over 2 years is usually not a big problem.
I was just going to say, Mitch, that between INDOT's help and Stu and Jeremy, who probably have both been through this, I think you've got some places you can turn for guidance.
Absolutely, and thanks everybody.
The big thing is it doesn't feel like we're ever again going to be able to program $8 and $10 million projects.
Right.
Since we can't carry over, there's just, I mean, Jaeger, and I'm glad we're programming that with the hope for a swap, just because Jaeger does not split. It's not a project that can phase very well. Yeah, probably a tough split.
Do we have to phase construction, or could we treat it similar to what Travis was just talking about with consulting services, to where it's a multi-year project? So
for you all, it would have to be split. We can't cash flow construction. I'll tell you that we do that on our largest projects, $100 million or so. We get special authorization with a financial plan blessed by Federal Highway to do so. But otherwise do not, and probably I'd have to review the oversight agreements, probably can't extend that courtesy out, and would be laughed at a little on smaller projects. I understand the impact, but all of the paperwork then for the Federal Highway folks and so forth probably wouldn't go over well.
Yeah, you don't mind if we cover it with our own local fund, but construction dollars is different pot.
Yes.
Cover.
The same would technically, be true of any railroad funding. Not to get in the weeds on some of this stuff, but the railroad would be similar to that construction, right, as usual. So anyway, that's a little messier.
I don't think that applies anymore because they're no longer now railroad is a reimbursable, right? It's not you're not running railroad money anymore, I don't think. Pretty sure.
So in some of these outer years, that's right. Yes. Apologize.
Because they ran Klondike Railroad for us, but we're reimbursable on Lindbergh. So that switches back and forth. That's not a permanent thing on the railroad. Ask.
Sue's always trying to give a little extra here.
You kind of opened the door, didn't you?
I was afraid to speak at all as we were talking about not having reserves of carryover balance, as I'm pretty sure the last time I was here was nearly a year ago, and it's been an ongoing topic ever.
Yes.
Trying to leave the Band-Aid on, Stu.
So Jeremy, can you live with 2026 for South Ninth if we can fully fund it in 1 year and you don't have to split the contract or construction?
I like not having to split construction. My only question would be on the environmental document and when we get that complete, which will be in the not too distant future, versus when construction happens. Are we gonna have to go back and revisit the environmental document?
Yeah, when does it start to smell? I forget.
I can't remember how many years.
Do you remember, Travis?
So there isn't a defined year range, but it does have a lot more to do with condition changes. I'll reference an instance for the Ronald Reagan Parkway in Hendricks County, and that environmental document, the original one, being more than 20 years old at a time that we had simply updated with a 2-page AI and kicked a project back out. Not so recently, but not so long ago either. So, yes, there is some risk if you see some conditions changing, but depending upon the location, you might have years of room to play with here.
Yeah. Doesn't it matter, like, if we were thinking in Morehouse, because we were going to buy all the right-of-way and we'll have the right-of-way, the environmental, we go to the second phase, it'll be old, but the fact that we've purchased the right-of-way, we've kind of locked it down environmentally, right? So it would just be an AI. That's what we're assuming when we get to phase 2, because we bought the right-of-way. What could be different? Nobody's building a gas station on our ground. Just a thought. Just a hope. That's what we're hoping.
Yes, which is that continued pressure to just maintain progress to delivery. It's I think all of the things that you all are doing and talking about have no risk of significant changes. It's where these things are done in other places. None of them, I believe, in Indiana, and where things linger for some great long time.
I think that's good for us if we can shut down without letting us.
So then are we finished here with our STBG and TA funds? So how it's laid out here seems to be agreeable.
And you might ask if we have consensus.
All right, are there any need for other changes? Doug, does this make sense to you? You have all the numbers in the right cells?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you want it, so there's no need for a priority in this 2020, this last one, 2026?
Well, we only have the one project, so
Yeah.
it'd just be a priority
And no need for comments there?
Correct. I mean, the other years are pretty straightforward likewise.
Okay. So again, this is something that we need to vote on?
No, I would just say, if nobody objects, then you'll accept that we've reached consensus.
Okay.
Can I ask one question on the 2026? If everything, the stars aligned and Travis votes yes for our NOFA application on 9th Street, is there a chance to get some money in 2026 for trail?
The only money that I can see available outside of the STBG and then the TA funds would be to flex the remaining portion of the HSIP funds that we can, which I think is an additional couple $100,000, and that I think would be it.
There's no money of any substantial right now unless just incredible things happen. Okay.
Right.
So when we fall back into line discussing that NOFA, we're pretty much the answer to that question when we were in the interview. It didn't happen. We made the attempt, but there's not MPO money available to jump into that application.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions before we consider that we've reached a consensus? Hearing none.
And Aria said there's nothing from the public.
All right, good. So then that completes our consideration of that agenda item. Next would be the letting list, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, unfortunately, we're not finished with this. We just
Oops.
finished part one.
Oh, okay. So I was mistaken.
The next part is we need to do the basically same thing with our safety funds. And this is actually fairly painless because we only really have one request for safety funds right now, and it was for the McCutcheon Pedestrian Safety Project for fiscal year 2023. We also show that we did trade funds with NERC for in 2022 and then again in 2024, which leaves us a zero balance in those 3 years. In 2025, we did actually flex some to our STBG funds for a project, which leaves us a little over $500,000. And then likewise in 2026, we did flex only a small portion, and we do have a balance there. We cannot flex over the full, as in 2026 would be the 723,000. We can only flex over a portion of that because a part of this is our funds that were held back because of a penalty for, I believe, safety belts or something. So the penalty funds, they have to remain safety funds, but our standard HSIP funds, we can flex.
But not all of them.
Correct.
So if anybody wants to come up with HSIP projects for 25 and 26, we have money. Not a lot, but there's money.
Could that urban trail out to community corrections be considered a safety project? Could it qualify?
Well,
we'd have to do a road safety audit.
Pardon?
We'd probably have to do a road safety audit unless the crash history is significant.
I'm just wondering, with the growth of community corrections, the additions, and the issues that all came up in that application, is that an option, something we could throw out there?
Well, we could flex. We do have the ability to flex $289,072 in HSIP funds over to STBG. So you're looking at flexing over 280, what, 5,000 or so to use for the trail if need be, but it's not much.
Well, that's what I'm looking. I'm just wondering that STBG, you got 500 in 2025 and 700 you got 1.2 million across the 2 years, right?
Yeah, so the question is, could we get it to qualify as an HSIP project?
Right, because that would be significant. 1.2 million would go a long way toward that trail.
And I assume we'd have to do a road safety audit.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that the crash history is significant enough to warrant it alone.
Yeah.
Correct.
So Doug and Tim and Ari, I guess what we need to know is, could we do a road safety audit for that stretch? See what happens.
Well, my opinion is yes, we could do a road safety audit, but I don't think we could get it in time or get it done in time to for this tip. It would probably be sometime this spring.
No,
Yeah.
but we don't have to program all this money before adoption, do we?
We do not. We can leave it open.
Yeah.
Right. So the answer is yes, we can do a road safety audit. If there's no request for these funds right now, we could see what the road safety audit says. And if nobody else, Jeremy or Mitch don't have any other safety projects where they could be used, then that's one possibility for their use.
Right away. Yeah. You think about all that on the west side, there's all that John Brandon and Hope stuff. I don't think he's gonna be real big about it. But if I would pay for it,
Yeah.
I don't think
I couldn't hear whoever was speaking.
We were just talking about if we got the road safety, the split year funds. Just some, little internal discussion. We could make that work.
Okay, sorry.
If we can get it, we can make it work. So, yeah, that's a better answer if Susie and the gang comes back and says what,
Right.
at least we're working, we do have something that we might be able to talk about.
Right.
They may just say no to everything. Who knows? You know how I end up. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other action on this one?
I guess a consensus that we that this would be how we obligate the funds for the moment.
And then anticipate doing a road safety audit?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other discussion on this one? Okay. Doug, what else needs to be done at this point?
There's just one more thing, as in the past that we have done many, many years, is that this committee has looked at NDOT projects, whether it be programmed in the current TIP or in the long-range MTP, and make a recommendation that certain projects are a priority to this community. As we've done in the past, many of them have shown up, one being 231, extending it not only to 65, but to 43, widening I-65. Basically, again, this is great that we're seeing the next project, but extending that to new 231, and then extending I-65 south from 38 to 28. The Special 52 Sagamore Parkway, the multiple improvements along there, and that was per the US 52 corridor study. And then one that we've added in here that we've seen and we've discussed many years, sidewalk construction along State Road 38 from Sagamore Parkway to the basically east. We were thinking about including another one, which we had some discussion come up earlier this week, but we have not received any information from the district, is that we did receive a request to amend the TIP to remove the plant and shrub windbreak project on I-65, which is in the north part of this county. That's a safety project, and that is going to be removed from the tip. So we thought maybe this would be a good one to add, but we requested additional information from the district and have not received anything back. So this would be a simple, yes.
Go ahead, Doug.
This would be just an affirm that this list is a priority to this community.
So
I just happen to think, is it possible that that project was removed because of it's in the area of the I-65 widening project?
This is north of the widening.
I'm sorry. I can report on that project and am happy to know that we have many initiatives starting that relate to a lot of those priority projects on that long range list. But specifically regarding the windbreak project, while we are asking for it to be removed because we do have many programs and that was part of a special bench funding program, which means we had no dedicated funding, but we're hoping to use letting favorability to our advantage to fund such a thing. That we are going to use another funding program using safety funds through our systemic safety reserves allocated to fiscal year 2024 and do plan to reauthorize that in fiscal 2024 for delivery.
Oh, great.
You don't have any paperwork on that request yet as we're finalizing those internal decisions and obtaining authorization, but I expect in the next meeting or maybe 2 meetings, you'll have that information and you'll see that back on the long-term list.
That's
okay, great.
So we don't need to add it here.
That sounds correct.
The only thing, Doug, that is a little confusing potentially is like the second project, which says north to new US 231. There is no new 231 connection, nor do we have any idea where that would be. So if that just said proposed US 231 or something a little less definite might be less confusing.
Okay, we can change the new to proposed.
And then sort of the same on the sidewalk on 38 to Park East Boulevard. I forget, Jeremy, how soon will that be in construction?
Which the sidewalk?
The Park East Boulevard to 38.
Oh, that'll be in construction this spring.
Yeah, okay. Well, then I think it's okay to leave it that way because that road will in fact exist or nearly exist at the time this new tip is adopted.
I thought you were asking me about the sidewalk along 38, and I didn't know where that was. But yeah, Park East Boulevard, it already let this month.
Well, the sidewalk on 38 is to Park East Boulevard, but at the moment, Park East Boulevard doesn't exist at State Road 38.
Right.
But it will.
Yes.
Basically, by the time this tip takes effect.
Yes.
So I think the wording is fine.
Can I just ask real quick? The special 52 from Pontiac all the way back to Jaeger, rural to urban, what does that entail? We're urbanizing, we're gonna go storm and.
Yes, my understanding for the US 52 corridor study that all this section on Sagamore Special 52 would convert from the rural cross section that exists today to an urban design. It would also include sidewalks on both sides as well.
Yeah. 3 phases, Klondike to Jaeger. And then would that also include the vaunted roundabout at Northwestern, or? I've heard that for many years. Is that all part of that?
Instead of the ramps. Right. Instead of the ramps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that all? That's all in that.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Any idea when all this is supposed to happen on the Special 52 stuff?
That's a good question.
I think it depends on INDOT and West Lafayette's negotiations.
Okay.
Because ultimately it will probably not be an INDOT project.
We would like to see anything that's that intimately involved with local operations and flows, be in the control of the local.
There you go, Mitch.
I think it depends on how much money Shane's gonna offer West Lafayette.
Yeah.
Well, see, now we're back on the other side again. What do you...
I know. Keep that Band-Aid on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about the new 231 road construction. What in the world is that?
That's the project where we hope to extend new 231 at least up to I-65. And we put some money last year, some of our federal funds, we passed it to INDOT so that we together could work on a corridor study for where that road might go and how it might happen.
So it would change the 231 goes up to I-65 in the, from Montmorency. So it would change that road to something else.
Yeah, that would then become a local road. So this would be a whole new extension of new 231 north of 52. And then curve around and somewhere intersect with I-65. And we've always hoped that we could also get it extended even farther east of 43, but I-65 would be a major improvement. And then current 231 at Mount Morency and north, that would become county roads.
Okay.
So it basically continue 231 straight north from next to the Meyer up to I-65, and
that's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. That's what I was curious. Thanks.
I am happy to report that we have authorized a notice to proceed for the corridor study in the last few weeks.
That's great.
So I guess the last thing needed would be to affirm this list as a priority to the committee, or to the, affirm this list of INDOT projects as a priority to this community. And then after that, I think we're finished with the staff report.
That would be by a vote then that we need to take?
We could do it by vote, or we could do it similar as we did with the funding.
Okay. The consensus would be quicker. So we have before us the list of projects. Is there anybody who has more to say about this, pro or con? So is there any objection to a consensus reached as far as affirming this list with the, I think there's one adjustment we made, change the word new 231 to proposed US 231?
Correct.
Otherwise, I think the wording is as presented. Hearing
And
no
Aria says there's no
objection.
public comment.
Okay. So then the affirmation is affirmed, I guess. And we
Great,
have,
thank you.
we'll confirm that list. So Doug, you say we're just about finished with the MPO
That's,
update? Good.
yeah,
That
the
would be
only,
familiar 18-month letting list.
yes, I'll try to keep this brief because that was pretty lengthy. So you can see on the list, we had a number of projects that were let in December. Basically, these were 2 contracts. First one being I-65. Project was awarded to Milestone for $5.1 million. This is projects 1, 2, 3, and 4. Estimated completion date is October 1st of 2022. Projects 5 through 10, that was one contract. Various different routes, all related to thin deck overlays. That was awarded to Ram Construction for $974,000. Estimated engineer's estimate was $1.56 million. Completion date is targeted October 2nd of 2021. Looking down the list, projects 11 through 15, that was on a January letting that just occurred here recently. For the projects, the Lindbergh Road project, we had 5 bidders. The engineer's estimate was $3.68 million. Atlas Excavating actually had the lowest bid at 3.3, but their bid was rejected and it went to Reith Riley for $3.388 million. River Road project had 5 bidders. White Construction was the low bidder, it looks like, at $3.78 million. Park East Boulevard project, again, 5 bidders. Low bidder was Reith Riley for $1.97 million. And the State Road projects, one on State Road 28, the engineer's estimate was $15.48 million. There were 2 bidders. Milestone was the low bidder at $12.874 million. And for the State Road 26 project, 2 bidders. The engineer's estimate, it said that neither one were below the engineer's estimate, but the low bidder was Reith Riley at $2.48 million. We do have a number of projects coming up on the February bid letting. I think all of them are related to the Hoosier Heartland thin deck overlays. And then on page 2, I just mentioned 3 of the projects, 2 new, 26 and 27, pavement patching, one on 235 and one on I-65. And then project 33, a change on 52, a thin deck overlay going from a July bid letting to a September bid letting. So those are basically the highlights of the 18-month letting list. Any questions?
I'll offer one comment. In the next meeting or 2, you will see a number of minor modifications to letting dates for those projects that we expect to produce in the later half of this year as we go to lock down our fiscal year 22 delivery.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Is there any other business for us to conduct under item 6? That's our provision. Aria, has anybody on the citizen side offered any comments?
No public comment at this time.
Okay. Our next meeting would be scheduled for Wednesday, February 17th at 2:30, still doing the virtual meeting approach. Is that okay with everybody? Unless there's any other business to conduct or an objection to adjournment, I'm ready to adjourn the meeting. So thank you for all participating, and we'll see you one way or another on the 17th of February. So the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.